bass trembled through the floor, a pulse that shook the air and blurred the edges of every light in the nightclub. Voices mingled with laughter, clinking glasses, and the hypnotic rhythm that pulled strangers together like gravity. She never meant to be here. She never meant to do any of it. But fate doesn't always whisper. Sometimes it drags you by the wrist into the dark. Elena pushed through the crowd, her breath uneven from dancing and the humid warmth of many bodies pressed close together. Her friends had disappeared somewhere toward the VIP lounge, but she didn't care. She needed air, space, a moment, and that was when she bumped into him. Hard chest, unmoving, like walking into a wall carved out of heat and strength. A hand wrapped around her wrist, firm, steady, electric. "Careful, sweetheart." She froze. Not because of the touch, but because of the voice. Deep, smooth, dangerous in a way that made her heart trip over itself. She looked up. Black suit, open collar, tattoos peeking at the edge of his throat. Eyes like winter storms, cold, intense, assessing. He didn't look like he belonged in a nightclub. He looked like he owned the entire city outside it. Sorry, I wasn't looking." "You should. Men around here aren't always safe." She swallowed. His grip wasn't painful, just impossibly commanding. Like he was testing her, pulsed through her skin, and liking what he felt. "I'm fine, really." He leaned in slightly, and his breath brushed her ear. "I didn't say you weren't." A shiver zipped down her spine. She should have stepped back. She should have pulled away. But instead, she took a reckless step closer. The music swelled, lights flickered, and suddenly the world around her dissolved into a blur. She kissed him. She didn't know why. Maybe it was the adrenaline. Maybe the loneliness. Maybe the way he looked at her like he saw every secret she tried to hide. But the moment her lips touched his, he responded with a sharp inhale. Then a deep, slow claim that made her knees weaken. The kiss was fire, heat, control, a dangerous promise wrapped in silk. His hand slid to her waist, pulling her against him. Her fingers tangled in his shirt without thinking. People danced around them, oblivious. The world kept moving, unaware that her life had just changed forever. He broke the kiss first, but only by a breath. "Tell me your name." Her heart hammered. She almost answered. Almost. Then, her friend grabbed her arm. "Elena, we're leaving." The moment shattered. She stumbled back, breathless, dazed, her lips still tingling. The man watched her with a look that could burn a person alive. "This isn't over." She didn't know who he was. She didn't know he meant every word. She didn't know the danger that had just wrapped itself around her life. She only knew one thing. She had kissed the wrong man, and tomorrow, she would find out exactly how wrong. The sunlight stabbed through Elena's curtains like a personal attack, dragging her out of sleep. She didn't remember choosing. Her head throbbed, her throat felt dry, and her dress, she winced, was still half on, twisted around her like a guilty secret. There are mornings you wake up knowing exactly who you kissed, and then there are mornings like this one. Elena groaned and rolled onto her back. Flashes hit her like bright electric shards. The music, the crowd, that impossible voice, those hands, and her eyes snapped open. "Oh my God, I kissed him." She pressed her fingertips to her lips, as if she could erase the memory, scrub it clean. But no, every detail came back, vivid and undeniable. The heat of his mouth, the strength in his grip, the way he said, "This isn't over." She sat up fast, instantly regretting it as the room spun. Her phone lit up beside her. 27 messages. Most were from her friend Maya. "Where did you go?" "We turned around and you had vanished." "Girl, did you run off with someone?" "Helena, answer me." Elena squeezed her eyes shut. "I cannot believe this. I kissed a stranger. I kissed a man who looks like he ends empires for fun." Her phone buzzed again. Maya was calling. Elena answered reluctantly. "Yes." "Where did you disappear to?" I don't know." "You don't know?" "Girl, you don't know." "If you left with someone?" Elena chewed her lip. "I kissed someone." Silence. Then, "Oh my God." Was he hot? Hot was an understatement. He was danger wrapped in expensive cologne and carved into the shape of temptation. Didn't look real. And his name? Elena flopped onto the pillow. I didn't ask. A dramatic gasp exploded through the speaker. Elena, you kissed a random man without knowing his name. At a nightclub. A very expensive nightclub. Elena closed her eyes again. I know. You're living my dreams. If only it felt like a dream. Because something about him, something in his eyes, didn't feel like a mistake. It felt like trouble. Real trouble. What Elena didn't know was that her world had already shifted. The kiss wasn't random to him. And the next time she saw him wouldn't be in a nightclub. It would be somewhere far more complicated. Elena dragged herself out of bed. She had one comfort left. Today was her first day at her new job. Fresh start, new environment, no mysterious, dangerous strangers. She showered, dressed, tied her hair back, and repeated to herself, "You're never seeing him again. You're never seeing him again." Her nerves fluttered as she arrived at the elegant corporate tower downtown. The building glinted silver in the morning sun, towering and sharp. She stepped into the glass lobby, breath caught in her chest. This place is huge. I hope I'm not late. She approached the reception desk. Hi, I'm Elena Rossi, first day. The receptionist beamed. Welcome. Orientation starts on the top floor, executive level. Elena blinked. Executive, are you sure? Positive. The owner likes to personally welcome new employees. She smiled awkwardly. How fancy. How intimidating. She stepped into the elevator, heart racing as it climbed. 25th floor, 30th, 45th, 51st. The doors opened with a soft chime. She walked into a floor lined with guards, black marble, and the quiet hum of wealth. Everything in her life was normal, until this moment. Until the exact second she heard that voice again, from the corridor behind her. You're late. Elena's blood froze. Every hair on her arms rose. She turned, and there he was. The man she kissed at the nightclub. In a black suit. Hands in his pockets, eyes locked on her like she belonged to him already. Welcome to the company, Elena. Her breath caught. You're... He stepped closer, gaze unblinking. I'm your new boss. The hallway felt too narrow, too quiet, too charged with attention Elena didn't have the training to survive. She stared at him, the man she'd kissed without thinking, the man whose mouth she still remembered, standing in front of her like a living contradiction. Sharp suit, cold eyes. Power wrapped around him like a second skin, and now he was her boss. You? She whispered, barely finding her voice. You're the CEO? He raised one eyebrow, amused. Surprised? She swallowed. That's an understatement. He stepped closer, slow and measured, stripping the distance between them until she could feel the heat radiating off him. You ran away last night, he said. I didn't appreciate that. Her cheeks warmed. I didn't run. My friend pulled me. You still left, he murmured, as if the crime were personal. His presence pressed against her, not physically, but with an authority that made every breath feel stolen. Elena forced herself to straighten her posture. I didn't know you were this. And what exactly do you think this is? He asked. She gestured vaguely at the luxurious floor, the security guards, the marble walls. You're clearly important. He smirked faintly. Important is one word for it. Before she could respond, a woman appeared at the end of the hall, a polished assistant with a tablet in hand. Sir, the new hire orientation is ready, she said, giving Elena a polite smile before walking off. He didn't look away from Elena. Follow me. Her feet moved before her brain agreed. The hallway led into an expansive glass-walled office, overlooking the city. The sky stretched endlessly behind him, but he was the one who seemed larger than the view itself. She cleared her throat. So, what exactly is my role here? You're my executive assistant. Her stomach dropped. Directly under you? His lips curved. Very directly. She blinked hard. But the job description didn't say... It said what I wanted it to say, he cut in. The rest, I prefer to explain in person. She felt heat rise in her neck. Look, I want this job. But last night, he interrupted softly, is not something you're going to forget. Neither will I. "That's not professional," she whispered. "I don't recall promising professionalism." Her heart kicked hard. He circled behind his desk, leaning back against it as he folded his arms. His gaze traveled over her as if measuring her reactions. "Do you regret kissing me?" he asked. She inhaled sharply. I didn't know who you were." "That wasn't my question." She glanced away. The memory of his mouth made her pulse flutter. "It was a mistake." He pushed off the desk with slow, predatory ease. "No, it wasn't." She backed up a step without meaning to, but he didn't close the distance this time. He stopped, only when he knew she felt the weight of his eyes. "Listen," she said, trying again to regain control. "I'm here to work. That kiss was just a beginning," he finished, "not an ending." Her breath hitched. "This is insane. Welcome to my world." He walked to the door but paused, giving her a sharp, unreadable look. "There's an orientation meeting in 10 minutes, he said. "I expect you there." She nodded, unable to find words. "And Elena," he added, voice lower, more dangerous, "don't run from me again." He left, the door shutting softly behind him. Elena gripped the edge of the desk to steady herself. Her first day, and already she was, drowning in something she couldn't name. Danger, temptation, power. This was not the job she applied for, and he was not the man she should have kissed. But it was far too late to undo any of it now. Elena stood outside the conference room, clutching her notebook like a lifeline. Her heart was still unsteady from the encounter in his office. The hallway felt colder now, quieter, as if everything inside the building held its breath whenever he walked through it. She inhaled deeply. "It's fine," she whispered to herself. "Stay professional. Don't think about the kiss. Don't think about him." But thinking about anything else felt impossible. She pushed open the door and stepped into a sleek meeting room filled with new hires. Everyone looked calm, cheerful, excited. Meanwhile, Elena felt like her pulse was running a marathon under her skin. A woman next to her smiled warmly. "First day?" Elena nodded. "Is it that obvious?" "Only because you look terrified." Before Elena could respond, the room shifted. A hush fell over the group. People straightened in, their seats. Chairs stopped moving. Conversations died mid-sentence. He entered the room. Her boss, the stranger she kissed, the man who had looked at her like her lips were a promise. He moved with the kind of quiet authority that didn't need introduction. He didn't glance at anyone until his gaze landed on her, and stopped. Her breath froze. His eyes lingered on her as if time folded inward, trapping the two of them in a moment no one else could see. Something slow and dark flickered in his expression. Recognition, ownership, a claim she had never agreed to but somehow already felt. He walked to the head of the table. She tried to look away. She failed. He began speaking. "Welcome to the company. I don't give long speeches, so let's make this simple." His voice was calm, controlled, deep enough to settle into the air like gravity. "You were chosen because you're useful. I value efficiency, loyalty, and discretion." He said it while looking directly at her. Elena shifted uncomfortably. "Your work here matters," he continued. "It will be challenging, demanding, and at times, intense." Again, his eyes locked with hers, long enough for her stomach to twist. "And if anyone has a problem with intensity," he added softly, "you should leave now." A ripple of nervous laughter filled the room, but Elena didn't laugh. She couldn't. He wasn't talking to them. He was talking to her. Her cheeks warmed, her throat tightened. She hated how he could do that. Make her feel singled out with just a few measured words. Another manager entered and introduced the training schedule. He stepped back, but he didn't stop watching her. Every time she glanced up, he was there, leaning against the table, eyes sharp, unreadable, studying her reactions. At one point, he lifted his chin toward her, silently beckoning her out of the room. Her stomach dropped. Everyone else was focused on the presentation. No one noticed that she stood and slipped through the door behind him. The hallway was empty, too quiet. He waited just around the corner, hands in his pockets, posture relaxed, but eyes anything but. She swallowed. "Why did you call me out?" He stepped closer, not close enough to touch her, but close enough to make her nerves twitch. I wanted to confirm something, he said. She forced herself to meet his gaze. What? That it's really you, he said softly. The girl from last night. The one who kissed me like she meant it. Her breath caught. I didn't mean... You did, he cut in. But we'll talk about that later. I don't think we should talk about it at all. Oh, we will. He leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper. Because I recognize you now. Not just your face, the way you react, the way you breathe, when I walk closer. The way you avoid looking at my mouth because you remember exactly what it felt like. Her knees weakened, and she hated that he noticed. This is inappropriate, she whispered. And yet, he said, you're still here. His words burned through her chest. He straightened, his expression returning to something colder, more controlled. Orientation ends in an hour, he said. After that, you're coming to my office. For what? For clarity. She stared at him, unable to form an answer. He turned and walked away, leaving her breathless in the hallway, her heart pounding in ways she couldn't hide or explain, and she knew whatever clarity he wanted to give her would change everything. Elena spent the rest of orientation pretending to listen, pretending to take notes, pretending her heart wasn't thundering against her ribs like a warning she couldn't outrun. Every minute felt stretched too tight, every breath uneven. She checked the clock. 5 minutes until orientation ended. 5 minutes until she had to go to his office. 5 minutes until she faced the man whose kiss still lived on her lips like a secret. When the session finally ended, people gathered their things happily. Elena stayed seated, frozen in place. The woman beside her nudged her. You coming? Elena forced a small smile. Yeah, I just need a minute. When the room emptied, she finally stood. Her legs felt slightly shaky. She hated that. Hated the loss of control. Hated how he could shake her without even being in the room. She walked toward the elevator, each step echoing too loudly. Top floor, his domain, his territory. When the doors opened, she stepped into the silent hallway. His office door was half open, light, spilling across the floor. She hesitated, then knocked. His voice came from inside, smooth, steady, impossible to ignore. Come in. She pushed the door open slowly. He was standing by the window, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city below like it belonged to him alone. When he turned, his gaze hit her with full force. Close the door, he said. She did. He studied her for a long moment, eyes dark, unreadable. You look nervous. She exhaled sharply. I'm not nervous, just confused. About what? You told me to come here, but you didn't tell me why. I will. He walked toward her, each step too intentional. But first, answer my question. What question? He stopped in front of her, close enough that she felt his warmth, far enough that he was still in. Control. Did you regret kissing me? Her pulse jumped. I told you it was a mistake. Not what I asked. She swallowed, unable to hold his gaze. I don't know. You do, he said softly. You just don't want to say it. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. He watched her silently for a few seconds, and his expression shifted, hardening, sharpening, turning serious. You need to understand something before you keep working here, he said. Before you decide what last night meant. She lifted her chin. I know I shouldn't have kissed my boss. That's not the problem. Then what is? He stepped even closer, his voice low, controlled, and edged with something darker. I'm not just your boss, Elena. She frowned. What does that mean? It means, he said, you need to be careful. Her breath stilled. Careful? Of you? His eyes locked onto hers. Yes. The single word sliced the space between them. She tried to laugh it off. You're being dramatic. No, he said quietly. I'm being honest. He walked past her and closed the blinds, shutting out the city. The room dimmed, turning. Intimate, tense. You don't know who I am, he said behind her. You don't know what I do. And last night, you kissed someone you should never have touched. She turned to face him. Then why kiss me back? His jaw tightened. Because I wanted to. Her heart thudded hard. But wanting something doesn't make it safe, he continued. And being near me is not safe. Are you trying to scare me? she asked. I'm trying to warn you. She stepped closer without realizing it. Warn me about what? He held her gaze, his voice low enough to pull every breath from her lungs. About me, Elena. About the things you'll see if you stay. About the people who want to hurt. Me and anyone standing beside me. Her body went cold. He searched her face, as if waiting to see fear, or something else. This job, he said, puts you close to me. Close enough to see things you shouldn't. Close enough to be a problem for the wrong people. She whispered, then why hire me? He didn't answer immediately. His eyes flicked to her lips, the same way they had last night. Because, he said slowly, once I saw you, I wasn't letting you walk away. Her breath trembled. Even if it's dangerous? She asked. Especially then. The room felt too small, too warm, too charged. He leaned in, not touching her, not yet, but close enough that his breath brushed her skin. This is your first warning, he whispered. Stay away from me. Her heart pounded wildly. And if I don't? His voice dropped into something darker, deeper, entirely unguarded. Then I won't stay away from you either. The warning wasn't a threat. It was a promise, and it changed everything. Elena tried to focus on her work, but every sound, every step, every glance in the office pulled her attention back to him. His presence was magnetic, dominating, impossible to ignore. She realized quickly that the kiss, the warning, and his dark intensity had become a permanent shadow over her first day. She typed her first emails with trembling fingers, her heart still racing from their private conversation. A knock on the glass partition startled her. Newbie? A deep voice said, smooth but firm. She looked up. He was leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, eyes assessing. Report on. Today's schedule. Elena swallowed. Yes, of course. She read from her notes, careful to sound competent. His lips curved slightly. Good. Make sure your notes are exact. One mistake and you'll understand why attention matters here. Her stomach twisted. I understand. He stepped inside, casually moving past her desk, observing the office like it belonged to him. And in a way, it did. Every employee straightened as he passed. She could feel the silent weight of his control pressing against her. Later, while entering data for his meetings, she caught him watching her from across the room. Their eyes met for a brief second, and she quickly looked away, feeling the heat rise in her cheeks. A colleague appeared beside her. You okay? You look tense. Elena nodded, trying to sound normal. Just first day nerves. The colleague shrugged and walked away. Elena exhaled, realizing that for her, first day nerves weren't the problem. The problem was him. He approached again, stopping at her desk. You work efficiently, he said, voice low. I like that. Thank you, she replied, careful to maintain professional distance. He leaned closer, just slightly, so she could feel the intensity of his gaze. But you're nervous. I'm not. You are, he interrupted, calm and certain. And I can tell by the way your hands tremble when you type, by the way you bite your lip, by the way you avoid my eyes. Elena swallowed, unsure whether to be impressed or terrified. I just want to do a good job. You will, he said, straightening, voice softening. As long as you remember one thing. What's that? He paused, his eyes darkening. This isn't a normal workplace. I don't tolerate lies, excuses, or weakness. And I don't tolerate people standing too close to me without understanding the consequences. Elena nodded, heart hammering. I understand. He moved to the door but turned back suddenly. But there's something else you need to know. She blinked, waiting. He smiled faintly, dangerous and deliberate. Some things are meant to be tested. Some boundaries are meant to be pushed, and I intend to see which one you're made of. Elena felt heat climb her neck, unsure if it was anger, embarrassment, or something else. Entirely. Throughout the afternoon, every interaction felt like a game. A glance from him, a subtle comment, a challenge disguised as instruction. She realized he was testing her, measuring her reactions, seeing how she handled the tension, the attraction, the fear. During a meeting with other executives, she watched him command attention effortlessly. His words carried weight, his presence dominated the room. And yet, he kept glancing at her, subtle but deliberate, like a predator checking on prey. By the end of the day, Elena was exhausted, mentally and emotionally. But something inside her had shifted. She was drawn to him, terrified by him, challenged by him. She realized then that working for him wasn't just a job. It was a game, a dangerous, exhilarating, intoxicating game, and she had just stepped onto the board. The office lights dimmed as Elena filed the last of the day's reports, her mind still buzzing from the games he'd forced her to play. Every glance, every word, every slight smile had been a test. She could feel the tension in her muscles, the rapid thrum of her heart echoing in her ears. She gathered her things, ready to leave, when she heard voices from the conference room. She stopped. The door wasn't fully closed. Curiosity won over caution. She stepped closer, peeking through the small glass panel. He was speaking with a man she didn't recognize. Dark suits, sharp tones, eyes that didn't blink. She knows nothing yet, he said, his voice calm but dangerous. She shouldn't, the other man replied. If she finds out too soon, she could panic, or worse, make a mistake. Elena's stomach tightened. Her breath caught as she heard him respond, low and sharp. Then she'll have to be careful. Everything she does now matters. What do you mean? The other man pressed. She's close to me, he said simply. Too close. If anything happens to her, it will become my problem. Elena's fingers trembled on the folder in her hand. The man hesitated. And if she gets hurt? His voice dropped, a dangerous whisper she could feel even through the glass. She doesn't get hurt, not on my watch? The other man gave a tight nod. Understood. Elena stepped back, heart hammering. The casual workplace she thought she'd joined suddenly felt like a world she didn't understand, one of secrets, danger, and invisible threats. A soft cough behind her made her spin. He was standing there calm, eyes sharp, studying her reaction. Curiosity, he said, almost amused. Very dangerous. I didn't mean... You weren't supposed to hear that, he said quietly, taking a step closer. His gaze was intense, unreadable. But now you know enough to understand why this job isn't like any other. Her pulse raced. What is this world? The one you're already in, he said. The one where being near me means being in danger, whether you like it or not. Elena shook her head. I didn't sign up for this. No, he said, voice dropping to a low warning. You didn't. But now that you're here, you're part of it. There's no turning back. She swallowed hard, realizing the depth of what he was telling her. And the kiss, she whispered. Last night. Was it just a mistake? He stepped closer, voice smooth but firm. No, it was intentional. And it brought you here. Into this. Into proximity. Into danger. Into me. She took a step back, overwhelmed. I don't know if I can handle this. You will, he said, eyes locking onto hers. Because you're stronger than you think. And because I don't allow weakness in my proximity. You'll adapt, or you'll learn quickly why some. Mistakes are permanent. Her chest tightened. The weight of his words pressed down on her like iron. Be careful, he said softly. Everything you do now matters, and people are already watching. Her mind raced. Watching? Who? He didn't answer. Instead, he leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. You'll find out soon enough. She realized in that moment that her life had shifted entirely. No longer was she just an assistant. She was a participant in a world she barely understood. One where every glance, every word, and every decision could carry consequences far beyond her imagination. As he straightened and walked away, the office seemed quieter, colder, and infinitely more dangerous. Elena gripped her bag tightly. One thing was certain. Working for him meant walking the edge of a knife. And somehow, She couldn't stop herself from wanting to see how far she could go without falling. Elena barely slept that night. Every shadow in her apartment seemed to flicker with danger. Every noise from the street below sounded like a warning. She kept replaying the conversation she'd overheard, the hints of his world, the veiled threats, the invisible observers. She knew, somewhere deep down, that being close to him wasn't just risky, it was dangerous. The next morning, she arrived at the office early, hoping for a normal day. She kept her head down, focused on the files and emails, trying to convince herself that yesterday's revelations were enough to survive. But danger didn't wait. She was walking toward the parking garage after work, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the asphalt. Her heels clicked against the concrete, echoing through the empty lot. She felt exposed, vulnerable, like someone was waiting. Her instincts screamed, and before she could fully register it, a hand grabbed her shoulder. She spun around. A man in a dark hoodie pushed her against the wall, holding a knife close enough to make her inhale its cold metallic scent. "Quiet," he hissed. Her heart slammed in her chest. She tried to struggle, but his grip was iron. Panic clawed at her throat. "Let me go," she yelled. "You should have stayed away," he muttered. A familiar voice rang out, low and commanding, cutting through the panic like a blade. "Step back." She froze. His presence was there before she even turned. The man in the hoodie hesitated, and that split second was all it took. In a blur of motion, the dangerous stranger from the nightclub appeared. He grabbed the attacker's wrist, twisting the knife away with precision that left Elena's jaw slack. "Run," he said sharply to her. She didn't need to be told twice. She stumbled backward, heart racing, and he kept his focus on the intruder, moving with lethal grace. The attacker struggled, but it was no match for him. In moments, the man lay unconscious, bound in his own jacket. Elena stood frozen, hands trembling, her mind still unable to comprehend what had just happened. You saved me," she stammered, voice barely audible. "I warned you," he said, eyes sharp, voice low and unyielding. "Being near me isn't safe. And now you've learned why," she swallowed, struggling to regain her composure. "Why me? Why does this keep happening? To me?" He stepped closer, just enough for her to feel the heat radiating off him. "Because you're mine. Now, whether you like it or not." She shook her head, feeling the adrenaline and fear collide. "I didn't ask for this. You didn't ask to kiss me either," he countered, voice softening only slightly. Yet here we are. Her chest heaved, panic still making her legs weak. I can't be part of your world." "You don't have a choice," he said firmly. "Not fully. Not if you want to survive it." Elena's hands trembled, but she found a small measure of courage. "Then I'll do whatever it takes to survive." He studied her for a moment, a faint smirk appearing at the corner of his mouth. "Good. That's the right answer." He glanced around the parking lot. "Get to your car, lock the doors, and never forget. Danger isn't always obvious." She nodded, voice barely a whisper. "Thank you." He didn't respond. He just disappeared into the shadows, leaving her alone in the lot. But somehow, despite the fear, she felt an unexpected pulse of reassurance. For the first time, she realized that working for him wasn't just risky. It was survival. And if she wanted to stay alive, she'd have to learn fast. Her life had changed forever. Elena's hands shook as she climbed into her car, locking the doors immediately. The adrenaline from the attack still pulsed in her veins, and every shadow seemed to stretch longer, darker, waiting. She wanted to call someone, anyone, but realized there was no one who could truly help, not like him. A sudden vibration on her phone made her jump. She hesitated before answering. "Where are you?" his voice asked, calm but sharp. "I'm safe," she replied, though her voice betrayed her fear. "You're not safe." She froze. "What do you mean?" "I'm coming to get you." Before she could protest, her car door opened. He was there, black suit impeccably clean. Despite the chase, eyes cold and commanding. No one else in the parking lot moved. He was like a shadow cast by power itself. "Get in," he said, Her chest tightened. I can drive myself. Not tonight. She hesitated for barely a second before climbing into the passenger seat. The moment she shut the door, he was inside. Seatbelt clicked, engine already running. The ride was silent except for the hum of tires on asphalt. Her mind raced. Why are you doing this? Because someone tried to hurt you, he said, voice low, almost a growl. And if I hadn't shown up, you'd be in a hospital or worse. She swallowed hard, looking down at her hands. You don't even know me. Why risk yourself? He glanced at her briefly, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. I know enough. You're mine now. And no one hurts what belongs to me. Her heart skipped a beat. Belongs to you, she whispered, fear and heat colliding in her chest. Yes, he said simply. You need to understand that proximity comes with consequences. He drove her to a discreet building she didn't recognize. Inside, the world was quiet, warm, and private. Security cameras and guards were everywhere, subtle but omnipresent. She felt like she'd stepped into a fortress built just for him, and now for her. He led her into a lavish suite. Soft lighting, plush furniture, and a breathtaking view of the city. He closed the door behind her. Sit, he instructed. Her legs trembled as she lowered herself onto the couch. He stayed standing, tall, imposing, and somehow protective all at once. You're safe here, he said. For now, no one can touch you. She looked around, awed, but uneasy. This is your home? My sanctuary, he corrected, his eyes locking onto hers. And now it's yours too, until you learn how to survive this world. I don't know if I can, she admitted, voice barely audible. You can, he said, stepping closer. The heat radiating from him made her pulse race. Because I won't let you fail, and because I'll be watching every move you make, she swallowed. Watching me? Always, he replied. His gaze softened slightly, just enough to let her see that beneath the cold and dangerous exterior, there was care, protection, obsession. Her lips trembled. I don't understand any of this. You don't need to yet, he said, finally sitting across from her. All you need to know is that being near me changes everything, and you'll survive. I promise that. She felt a strange mixture of relief and dread. Safe, but trapped. Protected, but vulnerable. Desired, but terrified. And yet for the first time since the nightclub, she didn't want to leave. Why me? She asked softly. He leaned closer, voice low and steady. Because once I saw you, I knew. And I don't let go of what I want, especially when it's dangerous. Her heart skipped a beat. She realized that his protection was no longer just about safety. It was personal. And she knew, without a doubt, that her life would never be the same. The penthouse was quiet now, except for the hum of the city far below. Elena sat on the couch, still feeling the remnants of adrenaline from the attack. Every muscle in her body was tense, every thought a jumble. He moved around the room with the effortless command of someone who owned not just the space but the very air. He stopped near the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the city lights before turning his gaze back to her. You're thinking about last night, he said. Elena's cheeks heated. I can't stop. He walked toward her slowly, his eyes sharp and unreadable. Good, he said, low and deliberate. Because I need you to understand why that kiss happened, why I kissed you back. She swallowed hard, trying to steady her racing heart. I thought it was a mistake. You know, a careless thing in a nightclub. He shook his head, stepping closer until she could feel the heat radiating from him. It wasn't careless, and it wasn't a mistake. That kiss, it was intentional. I needed to know something about you, something I can't explain to anyone else. And I knew, in that moment, that you were different. Elena's throat went dry. Different how? He crouched slightly, meeting her eyes at her level. Strong, smart, fearless in ways you don't even realize, and reckless. She flushed, uncertain whether to feel proud or guilty. And dangerous, he added, voice dropping. Because once you're near me, you're in my world. A world you don't understand yet. Elena's pulse quickened. So the kiss? It was to test me? He smiled faintly, sharp and teasing. Test, yes, and to claim you. She froze. Claim me? He leaned in, voice softer but edged with intensity. Yes, not just because I wanted it, not just because it thrilled me, because I knew the moment our lips met, I couldn't let you go. Her mind reeled. You don't even know me. I know enough, he said, taking a measured step closer. And that's dangerous for both of us. For you. For anyone who gets too close. You can't imagine what happens when I want something, and especially someone. She swallowed hard, the weight of his words pressing on her chest. So, it wasn't just attraction? He shook his head. It was more than that. It's control, possession, protection. All of it wrapped, together in one moment you can't unremember. Her hands trembled slightly. And now I can't forget either. Good, he said simply. His eyes held hers, sharp and unyielding. Because forgetting would be dangerous. You need to remember exactly what you did and what you started. Elena's voice wavered. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I didn't know. You. I know, he interrupted softly, but with a force that brooked no argument. You didn't know. And that's why the truth matters. You kissed me. I kissed you back. And neither of us can pretend it. Didn't change everything. She closed her eyes briefly, inhaling, trying to steady the whirlwind inside her. So this, whatever this is, it's real? Yes, he said simply, voice low and final. It's real. And it's dangerous. And it's only beginning. Her chest tightened. The truth of the kiss was no longer just a memory of heat and temptation. It was a claim, a warning, a promise she couldn't escape. And now, he added, his gaze darkening, you have to live with it. And I'll be watching, making sure you survive the consequences of your choices. Elena's heart pounded, her body trembling with a mix of fear, desire, and disbelief. She realized that the kiss had not just ignited something between them. It had changed her life forever. And she understood, with chilling clarity, that there was no going back. Elena sat in silence, her breath shallow, her heartbeat impossibly loud in the quiet penthouse. His confession about the kiss, the way he said it, the finality in his voice. It wrapped around her like invisible chains. She didn't know whether to run or hold still. He stepped closer, each movement controlled, deliberate, as if every action from him carried meaning. There are rules in my world, he said, stopping just in front of her. Rules that keep people alive, her hands curled into fists. Then tell me, because I feel like I'm blind in a place everyone else knows how to navigate. He studied her for a moment, then nodded once. Good. You're finally asking the right questions. He sat across from her, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees, eyes locked onto hers. Rule 1, he began quietly. You don't walk anywhere alone. Not at night. Not in the morning. Not even to the damn vending machine if I tell you not to. Elena swallowed hard. Because of what happened today? Because of what could still happen, he corrected. Your attacker wasn't acting alone. Men like that never do. Her chest tightened. So, there are more? Yes, he said, and they won't stop just because I took one of them down. She shivered. Why are they after me? His jaw tightened. Because you were seen with me, and that makes you leverage. Leverage. The word struck like a cold blade. Rule 2, he continued. You listen when I give instructions, whether you agree or not. She bristled, lifting her chin. I'm not a puppet. A faint, dangerous smile curved his lips. No, you're something far more valuable, and that means your decisions can cost lives, including your own. Elena's breath shook. I don't want to be some responsibility you have to manage. You already are, he said, voice low. Accept it. The room felt smaller, the weight of his world pressing down on her. But he didn't stop. "Rule 3, he said, leaning back slightly. "You never lie to me. Not about where you go, not about who you talk to, not about what you feel." She blinked. "What I feel?" His gaze darkened, especially that. She shifted, heat rising to her face. "Why does that matter?" "Because lies create cracks," he said. "And cracks get people killed. I can protect you, but not if you hide things from me." She paused, a quiet beat passing between them. "Are these the rules for everyone in your life?" "No," he said simply. "Just you." Her breath hitched. "Why?" He stared at her for a long moment. "Because you're not like everyone else. You didn't flinch when I told you the truth. You didn't break when danger found you, and you didn't run when you should have." She wasn't sure if it was a compliment or a warning. "And rule 4, he added quietly, his voice dropping lower. "You don't underestimate me. Ever." "I never did," she whispered. He moved closer, just enough for her pulse to spike. "Good, because people who underestimate me disappear. And I don't want you to disappear." Her breath trembled. "I'm trying to adjust. I'm trying to understand all this." "You will," he said, slowly, and with me watching every step. Her voice softened. "That sounds like another rule." "It is," he murmured, "one you'll feel more than here." He reached out, slow enough for her to pull away. But she didn't. His fingers brushed her jaw, tilting her head just slightly. "You're in my world now," he said, voice soft but edged with danger. "And I protect what's mine." Her heart pounded, fear and warmth swirling together. "And if I break a rule?" His eyes held hers, dark and certain. "Then I'll teach you how to follow them." A shiver ran down her spine. His world had rules, and she had just stepped into all of them. The next morning, Elena arrived at the office feeling the weight of his rules pressing down on her. Every step toward the elevator felt heavier than the last. She tried to focus on breathing, telling herself this was just another day at work. Just another day. But she knew better. As soon as she entered her desk area, a file was placed before her. No note, no explanation. Just her name on the folder in sharp black letters. Curiosity and dread warred inside her. She opened it carefully. Inside were photographs, surveillance reports, and a detailed schedule of people moving around the city. Some names she recognized, some she didn't. But one thing was clear. The file was dangerous, full of information that could change her understanding of everything she thought she knew. A voice behind her made her jump. "Good morning," he said, smooth as silk, but with a sharp edge that made her stomach tighten. "Good morning," she replied, forcing her voice steady. He leaned against the edge of her desk, eyes scanning the folder. "You understand what this is?" I think so," she said cautiously. He straightened, voice dropping. "This is your first test. I need to know if you can handle information that isn't meant for ordinary people. If you can keep your composure. If you can follow instructions without hesitation." Elena felt panic rising. "A test? Yes," he said simply. "And failing isn't an option." She swallowed hard and nodded. "What do I need to do?" "Study the file," he said. "Remember every detail, every name, every movement, and be ready to answer questions later." She looked up at him, heart racing. "Questions? About what exactly?" "About survival," he said. "About decisions, about judgment, about whether you can keep up in my world." Her pulse pounded. "And if I don't?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he let the silence stretch, letting the tension coil around her like a living thing. "I'll be watching," he said finally, voice low and calm. "If you fail, there's no safety net, no second chances." Elena nodded again, more firmly this time. Fear mixed with determination. She didn't want to fail, not with him watching, not in this world. He straightened and moved toward the door, glancing back at her. "I expect your answers by the end of the day, and Elena?" She looked up at him. "Pay attention," he said softly. but the weight behind the words made it impossible to ignore. She spent the next hours poring over the file, memorizing names, locations, schedules, even minor details that seemed irrelevant at first. Every page she turned reminded her of the attack, of his protection, of the dangers lurking in shadows. By midday, her head ached, and her hands were stiff from taking notes, but she couldn't stop. Not when her survival, and maybe something more, depended on her focus. The afternoon came too quickly. He returned, eyes narrowing as he studied her. "Do you know it?" Elena lifted her gaze, steady despite the pounding in her chest. "Yes, every detail." He smiled faintly, approving but dangerous. "Good, because tomorrow you'll need to act on it. Remember, hesitation gets people hurt. Confidence keeps them alive." She nodded, a shiver running down her spine. As he walked away, she realized that this wasn't just a test of memory. It was a test of her courage, her instincts, and her ability to survive in a world she barely understood. And more than that, it was a test of her, of how far she would go to stay close to him, and how far she could trust herself. Elena knew one thing with certainty: she couldn't fail. The next morning, Elena arrived at the office earlier than usual, her nerves on edge. The file from yesterday lay neatly on her desk, its contents memorized but still heavy in her mind. She had repeated every name, every schedule, every location over and over, yet doubt gnawed at her. Could she really do this? Could she survive the world she had stumbled into? Before she could dwell too long on it, he appeared beside her desk. He moved silently, as if gliding, and the presence alone made the air thicker. "You're ready," he said, his eyes scanning her face. "Or at least I hope you are." "I am," she said, though her voice quivered slightly. He nodded, approving. "Good. Today, you'll see why knowledge alone isn't enough. You need to act, observe, decide, and survive." She felt her pulse quicken. "Act? You mean in the field?" "Exactly," he said. "I have a situation that requires discretion. Someone is testing boundaries. I want you to watch, learn, and report everything accurately. Mistakes could be costly." Her stomach tightened. "I've never—" "You'll do fine," he interrupted, his tone firm but not unkind. "Just follow instructions, trust your instincts, and remember the rules I gave you." She nodded, swallowing her fear. Minutes later, they were in a sleek black car, moving silently through the city streets. He didn't speak much, and when he did, it was only to give instructions or point out details she might otherwise miss. "See that man in the suit across the street?" he asked quietly. Elena squinted. "Yes. He's watching the building," he said. "Notice how he shifts every few seconds, always. Scanning, never stopping. Remember that. People like him don't blink. They wait, they plan." She nodded, taking notes in her head. "And the woman near the entrance? She's in place for a reason. Watch her movements. Count. The steps she takes, the way she interacts with the door. These small details are critical." Elena tried to keep up, her heart pounding, her senses alert. Every movement, every glance, every breath of the people around them could be a clue, or a trap. Hours passed in silence, punctuated only by his occasional directions. He never raised his voice, never rushed her, yet the tension in the car made her muscles ache. Finally, he stopped near a quiet alley. "Get out," he said. Her heart skipped. "Here?" "Yes. Watch, observe, record. Do not intervene unless I give the signal." Elena stepped out, anxiety gripping her, but forcing herself to remain calm. She felt exposed, vulnerable, but also alive, focused, alert in a way she never had been before. From the shadows, she watched the men and women he had pointed out. Every gesture, every whisper, every cautious movement mattered. She recorded it all mentally, repeating the names and patterns she had memorized, comparing them with reality. Hours later, he returned, approaching silently as she observed the last of the movements. "Well?" he asked, voice low but controlled. I followed everything. I saw them, noted every detail," she said, trying to sound confident. He studied her for a long moment, his eyes narrowing. Then slowly a faint smile appeared. "Good. You're learning." Not everyone can handle this. Not everyone survives the first test in my world. She exhaled, tension leaving her body in a small rush. Relief mixed with pride, but also fear. Tomorrow, he added, voice dropping slightly. You'll have to do more than watch. You'll have to act. Her stomach tightened again. Act how? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he leaned closer, the air between them charged with unspoken understanding. You'll see, and you'll either survive or you'll regret underestimating me. Elena swallowed hard. She understood clearly now. Being close to him wasn't just dangerous. It demanded everything she had. And she realized she was willing to give it. Elena's hands trembled as she entered the office the next morning. Every step felt heavier than the last, weighed down by the knowledge that today she would move beyond observation. Today she would act. The file he had given her, the countless rules, and the warnings all swirled, together in her mind like a storm. He was waiting for her, leaning casually against the doorway of his office. His gaze swept over, her sharp and assessing, and she felt immediately exposed, measured, judged. You're early, he said, voice low, smooth. Good. I want you alert for this. I'm ready, she said, though her voice wavered slightly. He motioned toward the door. Follow me, and remember, hesitation will get you hurt. Confidence keeps you alive. She followed silently, nerves tightening with every step. They walked through quiet corridors until they reached a discreet part of the building, a side exit that led to a narrow alley. The city buzzed faintly in the distance, but here the world felt suspended, quiet, tense. See that car? He asked, pointing to a sleek black sedan parked halfway down the alley. Yes, Elena said, straining to see details. That's your target, he said. The people inside aren't aware of us yet, but they will be soon. Watch carefully. Note everything, their movements, expressions, and any communication. Memorize it all. She nodded, heart pounding. She could feel the gravity of the task pressing down on her. Hours seemed to stretch as they observed from the shadows. Every glance, every whispered conversation, every subtle motion mattered. Her body tensed with each passing minute, and she felt the weight of his presence behind her, steady, commanding, protective. At one point, she lost focus for just a moment, and he stepped closer, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. The touch wasn't intrusive, but it sent a jolt through her system. Eyes on the target, he whispered, his voice low but sharp. Don't lose focus. She swallowed and nodded, forcing herself to concentrate. The targets moved, exchanged documents, and she noted every detail silently. After what felt like an eternity, he finally signaled her to step forward. Now, he said. Her legs shook as she approached the sedan, moving with deliberate caution. She used the skills he had drilled into her over the past days. The observation, the memory, the precision. She whispered details into her small earpiece, reporting everything to him. From the shadows he watched, silent, unreadable, yet undeniably present. Every time she faltered, a small, almost imperceptible movement of his hand corrected her focus. When she finished, he approached, his face unreadable. She held her breath, unsure whether she had succeeded or failed. You did well, he said finally. Better than I expected for your first field task. You remembered everything, acted decisively, and, most importantly, kept your composure. Elena exhaled, relief flooding her chest. She felt a small spark of pride, but it was tempered by exhaustion and the lingering thrill of danger. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. But this is just the beginning. Tomorrow, the test will be harder, the stakes higher, and I'll be watching every step. Her pulse raced. I understand. He studied her for a long moment, and she felt the weight of his gaze. Not just commanding, but intimate. One more thing, he said softly. You've done well, but don't forget why you're here. It's not just survival, it's loyalty, discipline, and he trailed off, eyes darkening, being close to me. Her breath hitched. She realized, with a shiver, that the line between danger and desire, work and obsession, was disappearing. She was no longer just a participant in his world. She was entwined in it, and she understood fully that there was no turning back. The office was quieter than usual that evening. Elena sat at her desk, reviewing notes from the past 2 weeks, each one a reminder of how far she had been pulled into his world. Every test, every warning, every subtle command had shaped her. And yet, she knew the ultimate lesson had not come yet. The click of heels on marble made her look up. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes locking onto hers with a gaze that felt as heavy as it was magnetic. "You've done well," he said softly, voice low but commanding. "Better than I expected for someone just entering my world." Elena swallowed, heat and fear mixing in her chest. "Thank you," she murmured. He stepped closer, each movement deliberate, filling the space between them with tension. "Do you understand what it means now, to be close to me?" She hesitated. Danger, rules, tests. He shook his head slightly, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. "More than that, it's about possession, control, protection, desire, and trust, though you don't get to choose which comes first." Her pulse thundered. I think I understand." He moved until he was just a step away, the air charged, heavy with unspoken words. "When you kissed me that night, you didn't know what you were starting. You couldn't. But now," he leaned closer, eyes dark, intense. "You can't ignore it either. You belong to me, Elena, in every way that matters." Her breath caught. "Belong to you." "Yes," he said, voice low, deliberate, unwavering. "Not because I claimed it lightly, not because I can't let go, but because once I decide something, someone, it's mine, and no one threatens it." She swallowed hard, realizing the depth of his words. Every rule, every warning, every test had led to this, the undeniable, inescapable truth. "And you," he continued, taking another step closer, "have survived, adapted, learned. You've proven yourself in ways most cannot, and now there's no turning back." Her chest heaved, her mind spinning. I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," he replied, voice softening just enough to make her shiver. "Actions speak louder than words, and you've shown me what I needed to know." Elena's gaze dropped, heart pounding. She felt exposed, yet somehow protected, drawn into a gravity she could neither resist nor escape. He crouched slightly, tilting his face to hers, a faint warmth brushing her skin. "Do you understand what it means now? To be part of my world?" "Yes," she whispered, voice trembling. "I do." "Good," he murmured, straightening. His eyes softened just a fraction. "Because I've been watching you from the beginning. Every move, every choice. And I won't let you fail. Not tonight, not ever. Not if I can help it." She looked up, searching his face. "And if I can't?" "You will," he said firmly. "Because I protect what's mine, and now you are mine." Her breath hitched. The words sent a ripple through her body, an undeniable heat and fear that collided in every nerve. The kiss from that night, the warnings, the danger, they all culminated here. His claim was unmistakable, undeniable, and completely irreversible. He stepped even closer, close enough for her to feel his heartbeat, his presence, his control. "This is the last warning," he said softly, a dangerous edge in his voice. "Being near me means trust, obedience, survival, and desire." Elena nodded, unable to speak, realizing that every choice from this moment forward would be defined by him. He paused, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "You've been claimed, Elena. Remember that. It changes everything." Her heart thundered. I understand." He smiled faintly, a dark, victorious smile. "Good. Now live it, survive it, and embrace it." As he turned and left the room, the door clicking shut, Elena sank into her chair, overwhelmed, yet electrified. She knew one truth above all. She had been claimed. And there was no escaping his world. As Elena's world shifted, danger and desire intertwining at every step, you've witnessed her. First steps into a life she never imagined, a world where trust is tested and every choice could change everything. If her story gripped your heart, left you breathless with every stolen glance, every whispered command, every moment of tension, don't let the journey end here. Subscribe now and step deeper into the thrilling, intoxicating world of love, power, and danger. Every heartbeat, every secret, every forbidden kiss awaits you. Stay close. The next chapter is coming and you won't want to miss a single moment.